Hello, everybody. Greetings, Dr. David.
Oh,
Hi, how are you?
welcome to everybody. And I recognize a lot of familiar faces and some new faces as well. So for those of you particularly joining us maybe for the first time to our little experiment here, it would be great just if you would put in the chat box where you're calling from today. And then we'll sort of dive into our topic for today. And this will give a minute for a few of our later arrivals to come. Someone was lucky enough to be at Tahoe. Well done, Susan. Hmm. Mhm. Just sort of scanning all the pieces here. There you go. Okay. All right. So welcome to our experiment. So I was having this conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody in our community who was feeling a bit sort of distraught about how does one even conceive of, let alone respond to the time that we live in. And so I began to think about what have we done and known over the years at MI that might be helpful to us, but I didn't really feel the need or felt a draw to create a new program that didn't make any sense. I said we just need to do like those little shops that show up in empty spaces where you can go buy things only for today, or and so I wanted just to create a series of these over the rest of the year around certain small themes related to how to use what we've taught for a long time to help ourselves stay mentally well, to stay engaged, and to show up in ways that might help the world recover a bit of its sanity, which it seems to have forgotten and lost somewhere along the way. And so that's why we're here. Yeah. So I'm just going to share this. I only have a couple of slides, but I want to use one just to kind of introduce the topic, and then we'll do one for a small meditation. So here we go. Um, so this is actually, I took this a few days ago, actually, just about 50 meters from my house, where I am in Amsterdam now. And and where I want to be really clear, I don't have some secret to say there's steady ground. Go over there, there's steady ground. Um, it's not like we're finding it as if we're going to search for it and discover it somewhere. So it's more about what we find in ourselves. So there's oftentimes when in this, like this picture for me metaphorically represents where our bucolic, sort of peaceful existence gets interrupted by this column of color and concrete, and which is a mirror reflection of a pillar for a bridge. But I just thought this was a beautiful piece just to show the juxtaposition of these two. And so for this particular pop-up, it's not about finding something, it's about noticing places of steadiness in ourself and how do we nurture those in a way that allows us to find them in ourself or with each other when we need them. So I want to just give us a little simple meditation to practice a piece of this, um, and then we'll give you the sort of the main slide for today that we'll then use in breakout rooms. But for now, we're just gonna. This is another one of my photos I took a couple of weeks ago when I was in a town called Leiden. So what I'd like to do is I would invite you, if you would, if you want to turn off your camera, you can, as we don't need to see everybody, but it will make you feel more comfortable. But what I'd like you to do is to stand up. wherever you are, if that's possible for you. It may not be. If you're driving, please don't stand up. But if you can stand up, that would be great. um, and so, as we begin the meditation, I'm just going to invite you to just quiet your mind, to let go of anything that you brought with you as you raced into the session for today. And just let yourself be here now. You might find support for that by maybe wiggling your toes and feeling the ground. And if we would just take a minute and start at the top of your head. Feel perhaps the muscles in your jaws to relax, your shoulders to drop, your exhale to get lighter as you move and scan all the way down towards your toes. And along the way, just notice without any judgment or need to change anything, how is your body doing right now? What are you noticing? And you might wiggle your hips to see, is there some stiffness there that you might want to send some love to? And as you move into this more relaxed state, I'm hoping that will bring for you a greater awareness of your surroundings and of yourself in your surroundings. And we did sort of a top to bottom sort of scan. Now I'd like you to do more of a horizontal scan, 360 degrees around you. And notice as you do that, if the energy or even the temperature changes as you move around your whole self and then come back to the front again. So we'll just take a minute and allow yourself to slowly just in your mind's eye, feel all the way around you and notice if anything stands out for you. And all the while, I'll just keep breathing. So now what I would like you to do is I'd like you to bring into your mind's eye one particular piece of our present dilemma that gets your attention, that maybe causes some upsetness, throws you off balance. Could be a person, an episode, an image, a worry, just one thing. There's many to choose from. Just pick one. And hold that and see if that lands anywhere in your body. So you might imagine you're holding it up against your chest, or maybe you're holding it in your head, or wherever it sort of lands for you. Just sit with whatever came up for you. It's all fine. And notice if that affects the way your body is connected through your head and your feet, or if thinking about this affects the energy that's around you. So just notice what's different now that you've been thinking about this. Mm. And now for our final piece. I'd like you to take a step back, if you can, And notice how that changes your perception of what was on your mind. How does that feel when you do that? Are there any emotions or judgments that come up? Maybe it activates a desire to run away, or a feeling of fear, or just notice, again, just notice what comes up. It's all fine. And just be with that. Whatever comes up is what comes up. And then when you're ready, I'm going to invite you to step forward and ask yourself the same question. What comes up if I do this? What do I notice? How does it change my experience? All right. And then when you're ready, just come back to center and see if anything feels different now. Right. And then when you're ready, you can come back to the room. And I'm going to let these last three people in. I didn't want to disturb you when we're doing that, but and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down the sharing screen and I'm going to invite you into some breakout rooms. And as we'll take a minute of pausing. So if you want to take any notes to yourself, please do. And when you get into your breakout rooms, I'm just going to invite you to be quiet at first and see what feels important to share so that you can make space for each other and listening. And go ahead and create these, and we'll give you we'll give you about 20 minutes just to get ourselves warmed up here. All right, all set. And those of you who just joined us, we were in the middle of a meditation, which is why I delayed your entrance. And so you can listen in, and if you pick up things from the people that are sharing, you're welcome to chime in as well, but you get to enjoy their stories. So enjoy. There we go. So recording again. That's great. All right. We had a whole bunch of people join us while you all were in your groups. So we want to welcome them as well. And I'd just like to take a few minutes to, if you feel inclined, you're welcome to share something in the chat box just to kind of bring your voice into the space. Or if you'd like to speak, let's do that for a little while. And then I would like to share one content slide as a source for our next breakout. But for now, is there anything that feels important to you that you'd like to share? Either in the chat, if so, then right away. Or if you'd like to speak out loud, just put your hand up and we can find you. Fiona.
I noticed the exercise having a greater impact the more time after you did the meditation with us, and I had the mental and physical experiences that I did. I found the exercise to be more and more powerful, and I had mentioned that to my group members, how whatever the emotion is that you're feeling about the current situation that you're in, the mental taking a step back, but also the physical step back was powerful.
Mm.
There was a removal from the feeling of that situation.
Mm.
And for me personally, when you asked us to step forward towards it, there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to step forward.
Mm.
Knowing you can't walk around it, you have to go through it. So
Okay.
physically walking towards or taking a step towards it, whatever it is, gave me a renewed sense of can do. No, I can do this. And so for me personally, this was a very powerful exercise, one that I will take with me. Thank you.
You're welcome. And part of this is just to help ourselves claim our right to be in space, the way we need to be in space, however we need to be in space. Is it Mira? Am I
Yes.
saying that correctly?
Yes.
Mira, welcome.
Welcome, Dr. David, and much gratitude to you and the Narrative Coach program for accepting me as a learner, a student. I've just loved this program thoroughly. And each of your images conveys such beautiful reflections right from the orientation slides and even today's image. When I just looked at that image and when you were asking us to just, quietly meditate, a very powerful thought came in my mind. We are always trying to find steady ground wherever we are in situations right from our childhood. We are always looking for stability in the rough, rocky ground or the unstable ground. That was a very powerful realization that came in as I just concentrated on that image. So I think with all our chaos and our stories and whatever narratives we are telling ourselves, the baseline is we are just trying to find steady ground through that image.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Dawn.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I found it quite interesting because when you asked us to step back, it gave me the opportunity to look at what was going on with a better perspective, a greater perspective. So then when we stepped forward, I felt stronger. So, okay, now I know what I've got to do. So that was really powerful. But then how that correlated with being in the breakout rooms. We had a lady from Canada and a lady from the States, and what was very interesting is we were discussing finding that steady ground, because I've just been sailing nonstop around the world for the last 7 years. So my steady ground is I've come back to Britain, I'm nesting, I'm finding that steady ground whilst also having lots of other adventures. But the ladies were talking about how with the things that are going on politically in North America, but as I'm so far away from what you're going through in North America, I was able to actually have that ability to step back, listen, observe and feel what the ladies were going for. And then I joined the conversation. So it was it mirrored in quite a few ways the exercise that you asked us to go through at the beginning.
Interesting.
So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And Laura, do you want to say anything more about what you posted in the chat box from your group?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything more that's coming to mind. I don't know if one of our group members want to jump in, but yeah, we just kind of, I asked like kind of how they had experienced that, and we all kind of just mentioned that we struggle with really, and maybe it's about how quickly we're able to be present with ourselves. I know for myself, I struggle to like you said, just pick one of the things, and I think I spent too much time just trying to figure out which one which one was worthy enough, or which one I should focus on. And in that time, I'm not really you know, being present to any of them. But I experienced the same thing as Dawn, kind of with, I ended up picking one, and I did feel like stepping back felt like a step back almost emotionally, and then that step forward, I really did feel a sense of strength. So that was the first time I had done that type
Yeah.
of exercise, and I really felt like that experiential kind of piece that you talk about in, you know, in the program outline, that I'm sure I'll learn more about later. But yeah, it was just that piece of like, we know how important taking the time to be present with ourselves is. It's just, it is a struggle, and you know, we recognize it takes a practice and setting up that practice, but that for some reason we struggle to do that for ourselves.
Yeah. In part of where the origin of the practice came from for me today was just, you know, reading these stories every day about people who are not allowed to stand there and who are taken or punished for whatever. And I just felt like being able to find our ground any moment in time feels really important. Um, I realized a long time ago that I wasn't one to create practices either. I'm not one to do the same thing every day at the same time. Some people are organized that way. God bless you. Um, um, and so what I've I marvel at you, but but for me, I realize what has served me my whole life is having a sort of imaginary set of practices in my back pocket that I can call on when I have moments of awareness where I should draw on one of them. And the more of those I've accumulated or created over the years, the more resources I have, and also the more opportunities I can be mindful in. And yeah, and so part of it, I think, is again, as we're trying to kind of like navigate how to relate to the world that we're in at the moment, which seems quite surreal. Learning how we want to position ourselves feels really important. Fiona, and then we'll move on to our next practice.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, is the recording going to be shared with the group, or a transcript of how you introduced this exercise to us?
Yeah, so the recording will be available after we're done, and you can then use that in whatever app you've got to create a transcript out of that if you want. So you can do that. Yeah. All right.
The AI assistant has said that there's a link and we can follow the transcription even as it's being created. So I'm presuming that it will be available as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's above my pay grade. That's from Sydney. Yeah, I don't know if we'll have access to that or not, but again, you can, we're working on that. So, yeah, all will be revealed. Now I have a giant 1 on my screen. Why do I have a giant 1 on my screen? I have no idea what that means. Now it's gone. All right, so let me just get back to here for a minute. So I want to just put this back up. This is where we were. And I want to just introduce an image that I sort of made it sort of blew it out of proportion a bit, but for the purposes of activity. And those of you who've studied ID with me or other things we've done, you'll recognize this photo. And we've used it a lot to talk about the phases of our own unfolding. And I want to use it here just to kind of provide another frame that sort of mirrors the one we've just done, as a way to recognize that if you've ever done any kind of sports that require movement and balance, you know, skiing, surfing, downhill bike riding, or anything, or dancing, or you know, the sort of notion of keeping your center of gravity as you move through things, so that you're always sort of in the flow of what's wanting to happen. So that's sort of where we're heading with this idea of steady ground. It's not a destination. I'm not going to give you a secret map at the end of the session that shows you exactly where to find it. Rather, I'm going to invite us to say that as we've started to experiment at the first practice, how can we resource ourselves in moments when we might feel distressed or distracted or to find that ground in ourself. And so I want to just give you a few thoughts on that, and then we'll give you a more extended breakout room to talk about what it might mean like for you. So the first piece that feels really important to me, and the work that we're doing now with the 5 maturities is really helping this to become clearer. That we live in a time when it's easy to be fractured, it's easy to be distracted, distanced, alienated, lots of things. And so it feels like part of the resourcing around steady ground is asking ourselves, do I have enough places where I feel like I fundamentally belong? And if the answer is no, which is, it can be true for many of us at times, it's really hard to do all the rest. So one of my invitations to you is, rather than worrying about what to do, I would think more about, who do I want to hang out with more often? And who might I want to let go of in my life because they're actually not contributing to my deeper sense of belonging. And so I think there's a time of curation to create spaces of belonging for ourselves and for others as a point of deeper connection. And one of the things that helps us to do, which is why, and I've actually had some wonderful conversations with the woman who painted this picture, that allows us, there's 3 pieces that I want to share with you. So one of my favorite words, as many of you know, is release. So, so this is a point of humility for us all. Near as they can tell, the universe is 13.7 billion years old. What's bothering us today, probably not a big factor in that 13.7 billion years. And so part of what I look at in most like wisdom traditions, particularly ones that are more indigenous and earth-based, there's this notion of feeding and releasing particularly heavy energies of grief or sorrow or anger to the deeper earth, compost it so it becomes fertilizer. So if you find places of belonging that are not feeding you, it might be time to release them, at least for now. And for me, a lot of what is really essential in whatever next happening and what we're supposed to do about that, it starts with releasing a lot of things that are not going to help us. So many of us as children, and particularly those of us who went into professions like coaching, probably felt an oversized need to be helpful to siblings, to parents, to whomever. And so it's hard when you're faced with the kind of situation we're in now to feel focused, because you may feel everything all at once, or you may feel, I've got 50 things I want to do. Well, that's 49 too many. And so this is really an opportunity to say, what can I just let the earth hold? The universe and the earth have held this for a long time. And that's not mine to worry about or to do in the overall scale of what's possible for me. And I want to belong with people and who will nurture me and others to do X or to do Y. So for some of you, it might be, I want to have more space to take perspective. I want to stand back more often. I'm flinging myself in and I get burnt out. Other people think, oh, I'm standing back too much because I don't know what to do, so I'm not doing anything. So maybe I just release my need to be perfect or have it all figured out, and go find somebody who's willing to go do something. And the example I shared in class a couple of weeks ago was I've always been this way, but I've made an extra effort in the little part of our neighborhood. I pick up litter every day. Does it make a huge difference? No, not at all. But for that moment in time, to other people come along, there's a bit more beauty than there was before. And so for me, it's just a reminder that there's a lot of small things that we can do if we allow ourselves to release anything that's holding us back from even started. So if we release, like, and you see this in plants, I used to do a lot of organic gardening. What plants really need is freedom for the roots to descend and be nourished. And so if you have a clear sense of belonging, if you've let go of things that no longer serve you at this point in time, it allows the root space to breathe and to have water come in and nourishment come in. If that's not there, then there's nothing really to support the root of whatever's trying to grow in you. And so for you, each of you, and for myself included, I'm in the midst of a whole bunch of things happening in my life at the moment. I'm asking myself, as I'm asking you, where do I need deeper roots? So again, it might be I'm trying to do too many things. I'm trying to pivot too many parts of my business all at the same time. I'm trying to keep up with too many people. I'm spending too much time on social media. And so none of the roots get enough nourishment. So your plant starts to wither. So where do I need to prune? Where do I need to deepen my roots? And part of that is into a well of belonging, right? It's not in over here by yourself. So again, as we play with the metaphor, just start to see again what comes up for you when you begin to think about your own rootedness and how nourished and fed you feel at the moment. And if it's not sufficient for what you want to be about, what might need to change in that. And again, we'll have a time for you to talk about that in a few minutes. And so part of what this makes possible is that the new shoots. So what could you actually begin? So, I've run programs for 20 years, or probably even longer. And I was passing by some small shops a few weeks ago, and they had some space was empty, so somebody had leased it for a pop-up store. What they were selling didn't interest me, but I thought, why don't we do more pop-up programs? Why do we have to agonize about making the perfect program? Why don't we just have a topic and bring some people together and have a conversation, which is exactly what we're doing. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what it's going to mean. I'm very happy that many people showed up. But I said, I need to begin some new things to build more courage to follow the threads of what's unfolding for me and our work. And so this is my first experiment. Let's see if anybody wants to come to a pop. And they did. And so here you are. And so part of this, when our roots are strong, then things start to grow. And so part of that is if I've got all these things I want to do, the roots get really overwhelmed and really can't support very much. So again, this is more about where can I just begin? And then the last piece here. So we did a session with a friend of mine who's a story expert as well on narrative resistance. And so for me, and all of these things we can have ownership and accountability over for ourselves. So resistance is not something we run around and just put our arm out and say, stop. It's like, it might just be I'm resisting a frame that's put on a situation, resisting rushing to judgment, resisting by supporting somebody who's in greater need than we are. And these are all ways for us to begin to say, I would like to be able to create spaces and times and opportunities for myself that feel like they're contributing my best self to be present to what's possible here and now. And for some of us, that will be big and some of that will be small. But mostly for me, it's getting this flow going so that we can continue to do that whenever and however we choose to do so. And for many of us, this is a time, unless we grew up in certain parts of the world, where a lot of this is very strange and very difficult and unimaginable. And so part of it for me is it starts with the sovereignty of our own experience, our own narration, our own way of being, and as the first point of resistance. And there's a great quote from, I can't remember whom now, but it talks a lot about the ultimate freedom is to live a free life, regardless of the conditions that we're in. And so I just want to offer this as a way, sort of like our movement exercise before, to begin to start thinking about what this might open up for you in terms of how you would like to find more of your own steady ground and what that might inspire you to begin. So I'm going to stop there. We'll move into some breakouts in just a minute, but I want to see if there's anything that's come up for any of you you'd like to ask about or share before we go into our breakout rooms. And I'm going to check the chat box while we're here too. Hmm. 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 Mila.
One thing that struck me when the word resist comes up, it tends initially to have a connotation of aggression or
Yeah.
conflict. And what I found often is it's even just a matter of challenging an assumption or not accepting a premise, which can be quite passive. It is also a pretty strong resistance. So I appreciate the dynamic.
Yeah. And so it's not aggression. It could be, but more it's like it's easy to get overrun with emotion and angst. And so I look at my own family of origin. Of my two brothers voted for Trump as president, and so one of the things I've been talking to my mom about, who's quite distraught by that, and so doesn't know how to talk to them. I said, well, you don't need to talk to them, but you can share with them how you feel about your sons as your sons, not about their choices or what they did wrong, because that's not your place, but just tell them how it feels for you. And so for her, that's a bit, if she can do that, I'll find out tomorrow. I'm going to ask her because they all visited yesterday. I'm going to ask her, even if you didn't say anything, were you aware of more things in yourself than you were before? So her resistance, to your point, Mila, is like, I can't resist them. I can't resist what happened, but I resist the temptation to be quiet again. I resist the temptation to let this define me, and I think whatever that resistance looks like to you, even if it's just protecting part of yourself, and so for me, sometimes that resistance has a lot of candor to it, and sometimes has a lot of compassion to it. And thanks. Rania, and then we'll move you into your practice.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Did I say it correctly?
You did,
Excellent.
Ryan. It's totally perfect. And I like some of the things you've laid out. You created, really good clarity, for example, on flow for me that I'd been wondering for many decades. So thank you. And taking off at this comment about resistance, I would like to hear you talk a little bit more about your own narration and sovereignty in relation to resistance. And I hear you kind of saying right now that we got to kind of figure out what it is. But yeah, I would just like to know more about the idea of resistance and narrative and sovereignty.
Yeah, so I had this conversation with a friend of mine earlier today, who's a long time, like 30-year Buddhist practitioner, and we were talking a bit about this. And so for me, it's as elemental, given my background in attachment theory, it's as elemental as, can I self-regulate? I resist the temptation or the seduction or the aggression to fight or to hold on to a frame. And you, Mila, in your work, you see that, I'm sure you see this all the time. I resist my own weaker self who wants to, oh yeah. And so my steady ground is coming back to the center in myself and say, what is true and important to me right now? And it might be to act out. It might be to push back. It might be to do lots of things. But if Yeah. And so, and to Chris, to your point, there is a resilience that comes and a trust that comes and an honoring of oneself that becomes. And it allows us to make more mindful choices in the moment that we're in. And so with one of my two brothers, we've evolved a relationship where we have those moments of meeting where we can see each other again, and then it disappears, and then it comes back. And so I've just said that's the rhythm that allows him to participate in the conversations with me. And I treasure them. They're so vital. So I resist fobbing him off. I resist listening for half an hour to conspiracy rants because that's not, I just call him back to center to be my brother. And I find it beautiful. And so so for me, that's the most profound thing I can do at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a
You're
lot of
welcome.
sense.
Yeah, and so Ellen, I see your point in the chat, and a lot of what we're doing is, again, what I think you're referring to is rewinding the story that we're made up or that we're feeling caught up in. And there was a beautiful post on LinkedIn today about hope is not enough. I thought that was wonderful. It's easy to get caught up in, oh, maybe this will get better by itself, or these things have a way of working themselves out. Maybe not. And so I think it's calling for something profoundly different for many of us. So Mira, I see your hand. I'm going to just ask you to hold that for now so we can have
Yes.
time in our breakout rooms, okay?
Sure, David.
Thanks. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can get this back. Where'd they go? Here we go. Recreate. Excellent. Okay. And how long do we want to do this for? Okay. Enjoy. Share what feels important to you right now. There we go. People are starting to come back. Excellent. Carolyn. All right, here they come. Welcome back. So I just want to take a few minutes here at the end. I've got one small slide to show at the very end, but just to give you a chance to reflect and share anything that came up for you in your group that you'd like to share with the rest of us.
I have something, if you don't mind.
I have to find the voice.
Darren.
Darren, there you are. Excellent.
Hello. I had a metaphor come to mind while we were in our group discussion.
Okay.
When I was younger, I raised tarantulas.
Okay.
And my saint of a mom actually let me keep them in my room.
A brave woman.
I got them when they were very, very small and raised them until they were big enough that I could sell them to pet stores.
Okay.
Wow.
And, there's something really fascinating that happens with spiders. They don't have bones. They have an exoskeleton. And so they have to grow by molting and shedding the old exoskeleton. When they do, they spend some time just stretching and letting the new exoskeleton harden. But for that to happen, they have to pull all the legs, and everything has to be pulled out of the old exoskeleton. And there are times when a leg will get stuck inside the old body. And so the spider will actually cut its own leg off. It will tear its own leg off so that it can survive. Because if not, the new leg hardens inside the old one and it's trapped and it just dies. So I think there is something here about the idea of release.
Mm.
That, yes, there are things that, sometimes it's something that we care deeply about, but that whole process of release could mean this thing that I care deeply about for at least a time I have to let go of. And the interesting thing is, over the course of about 3 more molts, the leg comes back. So it can regenerate the leg. And so there are definitely places where maybe something is torn off, but with time, something just as meaningful or important replaces it.
Thank you, Darren. As they would say, what he said. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And I see now always good to see Calvin and Hobbs enjoying themselves, relaxing a little while. That's good. Sherry.
I'm still sort of lost in Darren's beautiful visual, and I just am so appreciating that, Darren, because it's kind of what I was just going to say, David, that you presented us with so many ways we could go with this, but all of it so deep and can be completely transformative and create more meaning in our lives and everything. And so I just want to say I'm so grateful for that opportunity to sit with Tanya, my partner, in my room, that she allowed for just a large, expansive, deeper questioning. Don't have to necessarily have all the answers. And then Darren gave this picture of, sometimes it's going to take 3 molts and then it will be okay. But you will die if you don't do some of these hard releases. So that's gifting. Thank you.
Yeah. The friend I was talking to earlier today, we're both about the same age, in our 60s, and we were talking about one of our frequent pastimes right now is learning to have compassion for some of our younger selves, right? And it's been a huge source of progress for us both, and speaks well to the power of Darren's story. Yeah. Lenny.
Yes, thank you, David. I want to thank Darren for that amazing metaphor, the exoskeleton. I think a lot of times we look inside, the sort of the center of our body in terms of what has to change or is changing, and that was really helpful. It reminds me that I think at different stages in our life, we kind of take on armor. You're talking about resistance and self-protection. We take on a kind of armor and it becomes absorbed into our body. And so that exoskeleton gave me an image that I can imagine it, literally just melting away.
Yeah.
And I think it also goes with the persona that we carry or present and project. So I'm older than you, David, and facing a different stage of life.
Yeah.
And letting go of who I identified as a younger person, in a way that still gives me great capacity for new and different, as opposed to turning away from things or losing anything. So I just want to thank you all for all that today.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So I just want to thank you for showing up at our pop-up, and it's always a pleasure to be in these conversations with you. Yes, I'm confirming my language is English. Thank you. Just pops up random things. And we've just started our final cohort of our narrative coaching program. Emma's on our call as one of our 2 faculty. So if you ever had a hankering to study narrative coaching, this will be your last chance to do so this way. So you can go on our website and find out more about that. But otherwise, just want to thank you for your time. It's always a great gift for people like me to know there's people who actually care what we're doing. It means a lot to me. So be well. And we're organizing some more pop-ups across the year. So stay tuned. There'll be more of these. And you'll get a note tomorrow with a link to the recording if you would like that. All right. Be well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, you're most welcome,
Thanks.
Brenda.
Bye.
Bye.